Hi. I had talked about for my bodybuilding prep, just doing at least one of these videos that was just going to be one take, really, honestly, just easy. In the final week of prep, when I was at my most depleted, because I had known to some extent what was gonna happen to my body and brain. And so I just wanted to take a quick minute to kind of talk through some of those things. I made this outline, and the hope from this is a couple of things. One, so that I can look back on this and have a more clear record of how I was feeling at this time. But two, if you are watching this and you're considering doing a natural bodybuilding competition, I don't know what the outcome of this is going to be just yet. I'm not there, but I will in 3 days, 2.5 days, whatever amount of time. So I've got a pretty loose outline here to talk about things, and I'm probably going to ramble a whole bunch. I'm probably going to lose the plot. I'm probably going to talk and just like completely fall right off, but I'm going to try to do it anyway. So what's killing me right now, I've got this arm chair thing. I'm not going to do too much editing in this video, but this is one thing that I might. Oh, you know what if I just put higher? Okay, there we go. That's like slightly more comfortable. Okay, so I'm going to talk first about just like the length of my program and what I ended up doing throughout. So my initial intent was to do a 16-week prep, and I had seen 16 weeks as being just a general guideline from a number of different sources, right? Like, I didn't just jump into doing it. I didn't decide to do a bodybuilding prep overnight after doing 10 plus years of strength training. Made the call to give it a go. And it wasn't just that. It was that I had a ton of support, a ton of people in the Twitch community saying go for it, a ton of people on Instagram saying go for it. Not a ton, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't even have a ton of actual stop. I had a lot of people telling me to just go for it, and so I decided to go for it. And leading up, I wanted to figure out how much time I needed in order to really adequately prepare. Now, I'd known enough about weight loss. I'd known enough about general athletic performance, both from being a certified personal trainer and chasing that certification, and from just over the years doing a couple of bulking and cutting cycles to varying degrees of success. But I was just coming off of what was a 16-week, 16-pound bulk, just like almost perfect pound for pound, week for week bulk, and thinking that I was going to be able to do a cut down in the course of 16 weeks. Now, in that, I had started to prepare for a 16-week cut, and in shifting to maintenance and maintaining my running and not really doing intentional tracking of macros, because when I'm not doing a cut, and prior I'll get here, but not really doing any intentional tracking of macros, I found out that for 2 weeks of the 3 weeks that I was planning to do maintenance, I was actually in a caloric deficit. So I started losing weight faster than I had intended, or sooner than I had intended. And at that point, it was, okay, we're, 17, 18 weeks out. I don't honestly remember all of the all of the details. It's in a spreadsheet somewhere. Maybe I should pull it up and show it on here, but maybe not. I don't know. I had started a little earlier than anticipated, which in the beginning did not bother me at all. I was like, okay, that's fine. We're just gonna keep rolling with it. And so, long story short, my prep ended up being about 20 weeks, which you could consider the start of a bodybuilding prep to be at a number of different points. You could consider the start of a bodybuilding prep to be the moment you decide to do it. You could consider it to be the moment that you actually enter a caloric deficit, the moment that you start tracking your macros, the moment that you change your workouts. And I think for me, I had considered my cut, my full prep cycle to start at that 20-week out period, because that was when I had, intentionally or not, shifted into that caloric deficit and began that period of, you know, restrictive eating to some extent. Now, to just kind of pull back slightly, I feel like it's necessary for me to say, prior to that point, I did not track my macros. I would do what was referred to as audit days, and I'm going to plan on doing this afterwards, but I would do what is referred to as audit days in my own practice, where I would figure out what it was that I needed to eat based on past practice, based on what helped me feel good in the past, and this is from a combination of lifting and running pretty regularly and pretty intensely. I would take one day every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, depended on, you know, how I was feeling, to just do one day of very specific tracking. I didn't go down to weighing my food out at that time. It was really just, you know, if I was going to have 2 pieces of bread, you know, I would actually track the 2 pieces of bread. I would make sure that if I was getting 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, that I was actually getting 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, you know, going, like, grabbing the spoon and actually leveling it out, and, you know, having some rough idea of, am I eating the amount of food that I think I'm eating? And for me, as someone who was, for the most part, just trying to either maintain an energy balance or maintain a surplus, I won't really go into my previous year's cut, because it was good, but it also wasn't great. When I was trying to maintain that surplus, or maintain at calories, it worked for me to just check in once in a while and not really worry about what other food numbers were coming through. I had to focus on just getting higher protein and, you know, getting at least that 1 pound per body weight, because that was what I felt like I needed at the time. And, you know, I think a little differently now, but that was what it was prior. And so when I started tracking, when I started my prep, I'm going to talk about macro factor a couple of times during this video, because it is an app that I think has a lot of benefits for you if you are consistent in your application of fitness. So we'll get back to macro factor. So at the start of the diet, I was talking with my group of coaches, and, you know, I had a kind of collection, a pit crew, so to speak, of coaches that I was talking with on Discord and Instagram. Diabolic, Akroshi, B-Wolf56, Sweet Lou, and then some other folks that I was just kind of chatting with here and there, Metal Megs, Terrible Hime, different content creators and folks in the health and fitness space on Twitch and on YouTube that were offering me their time, their support, and you know, to this day, I simply can't thank them enough. But that's an aside piece. Again, I'm getting off topic. So talking with them, talking with Daya, I don't think we were really on the same page with what my energy output was. And this is natural, right? So for the first 2 weeks, I started off on a diet where I was pretty high protein, but I was at 2,400 calories. And this was me at 184 pounds, pound per gram, or gram per pound of body weight on protein, and then really not caring too much about the carb fat split so much as trying to hit that number of 2,400 calories. And in those first couple of weeks where I was maintaining running, picking up my lifting 5 times a week, not being really intentional about the intensity of my lifting, that sucked. Like, it was rough. And at first it was kind of like, okay, we're doing this. It feels good. It felt kind of restrictive. And for some people who have gone through preps or anything else, you're going to be like, 2,400? Are you kidding me that felt restrictive? The answer is yes, because along with running and lifting, I am someone who always walks 10 to 12 to 15,000 steps a day. And I'll continue talking about that later. But at the beginning, I was just simply cutting too much. So my trend line was good. I was losing 1.2 to 1.4 pounds per week at the beginning of my cut, which was fine, but also that is, I think many who are watching are familiar. You know, if I was only around 14, 13, even 12% body fat potentially based on a DEXA scan, that is really fast to be losing weight in a bodybuilding prep. So, you know, we kind of talked about the numbers. I picked up Macro Factor. Big shout out to Anesthesia and to Diabolic, who both pitched in for my first year of Macro Factor, because the other tracking apps I was using that just had like free stuff, I'm not even gonna, you know, I'm not gonna name which ones they are, because, you know, I think if I say free calorie tracking app, many people watching this video are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. The features that they put behind a paywall just made it like not really worth it. I had known about Macro Factor through, you know, a ton of listening to Stronger by Science and watching Stronger by Science, watching to the Jeff Nippard content. You know, we love Jeffy Nips, and just, you know, being really curious about it. And the way that Macro Factor works, if you're not familiar, is Macro Factor has this complicated algorithm that I don't know how open even they are. I could look on the website, it would take like 2 seconds. I don't know how open they are about what their algorithm is and what that all looks like, but basically it takes, over time, as you are tracking your weight and as you are accurately tracking your macros and your input, it takes that combination of input and what the actual change in your body weight is, and then runs this calculation to say, here's what's working, here's what we consider your expenditure to be within this range. Which, if you are someone, as I mentioned earlier, who is consistent, and I say consistent in the sense that, like, you don't have like 1 week you're going to be super active and get all your workouts in, and then the next week it's going to be like you're stuck on a plane for 24 hours 3 days a week. I cannot even, currently with my brain the way it is, I cannot even dream up another circumstance that would go make a person regularly go from very sedentary to very active, but you get what I mean. And so Macro Factor sets you up to say, I'm gonna lift and do cardio, or I'm gonna just do lifting, or I'm just gonna do cardio, and I'd like to lose this amount of weight over this period of time, and it will generate numbers for you based on what it expects you to burn over a period of time. So as it was going along, initially I started with a 2,400 calorie diet. I went to a 2,600 calorie diet for, again, this is 1 pound per body weight loss per week. And then I went into a 29 to 3,000 calorie intake diet, which was, I think at one point, like 350 grams of carbs per day. Very, honestly, very generous. So this is where I want to take a minute to talk about, like, I hear every once in a while, and like when people are talking about bodybuilders and, you know, how restrictive it is, getting more steps, I think, was probably the single biggest contributor to me feeling like a normal human being throughout a lot of my prep. That period between, I would say, like week 16, week 15, all the way down to week 7 or 8, maybe a little bit closer to the competition, where it was still restrictive. Don't get me wrong, because, you know, I was still trying to get out for runs 2, 3, 4 times per week, getting on the bike once or twice per week, doing other cardio, doing 2-a-days, and trying to keep my steps around 1,500 calories. Like, when you're doing all of that, there's 2,800 calories does not feel totally fulfilling. And so I did have a little bit of hunger, but I leaned on fiber and high fiber foods along the way, really trying to get my midday snacks timed out to every 4-ish hours, getting, you know, 40-ish grams of protein, and then potentially still being able to have something else at the end of the night. Yasso bars. Big shout out to Yasso. You know what, by the time I get through the contest and I come back around and watch this like a year later, I'm just like terrified that there's gonna be some like horrible thing that comes up with this company. But like having a like 90 to 150 calorie ice cream snack that had protein in it on a lot of days, again, helped me feel like a normal human being, helped me feel like, yeah, I'm doing this thing, yeah, I'm meeting my commitments, yeah, I'm hitting my macros, but it felt a lot easier as a result. So, you know, all that is to say, I had this time with food where overall my intake felt reasonable up until these last couple of weeks, where I think I really struggled to like really focus on my targets. There was a period where I had a lot of muscle inflammation and I wasn't sure if I was in a calorie deficit, where I think that I probably could have adjusted down a little bit harder to shave off a little bit more fat. And in that period, like, the scale just did not tell me jack shit. So if there is something to be learned for another natty who is going to be going into this process and is going to be watching the scale, taking progress photos, is that that pre-prep brain, or that pre-show brain, is very real, and that it's going to lie to you and it's going to say you are not doing enough, you have not done enough, like this is a mistake you made. When ultimately, if you start looking back at those photos from day one or even like part way through, you start to see that progress so clearly. And this is me being depleted, right? I took my depleted photos this morning after my third day of going 50 grams of carbs or less, and just trying to keep up with posing and keep up with lifting. And I see that I have shrunk, but the visual appearance of my body is just miles different, right? How much time have I taken up now? Okay, this is going to be a long video, and that's okay. That's okay. I'm fine with that. So that's a little bit about food. You know, I can talk about peak week. Maybe I don't know if I should talk about peak week too much, because I did a practice peak week. You know, fine, we'll go there. We're just gonna go there. I did a practice peak week about 3-4 weeks out. I don't remember at this point. Brain. Practice peak week about 3-4 weeks out, where I tried for the first time doing a carb depletion and doing a ketogenic diet for 3 days before gradually / rapidly reintroducing carbs. Now, I had intended to do this practice peak week leading up to the day before a comic book convention that my wife and I were doing some cosplay at, and I think I really kind of wasted it. I did a full depletion, and then the 2 days beforehand, I didn't do enough to get the right kinds of carbs. I think I did a little bit. I upped my potassium intake a little bit to try that out. I upped the water and the sodium to really just kind of fill up those muscles. And on the day that I was supposed to be peaked, it didn't work out. I woke up and I felt like I didn't stick to the actual routine. The day after, I felt great, because I had been a little more, you know, open with my eating. I had been, you know, I still stayed in my deficit numbers, which I think was also something that I could have done better in my practice peak. Not being less afraid to take the little bit of risk at that point out and go into a surplus for, you know, 2 days, or go at maintenance for 2 days, so that I could see what that was going to be like on competition day. Because right now it's still just a bit of a question mark. I don't actually know if I'm going to, I don't actually know how I'm going to fill out, because I didn't do a full practice. So lesson learned there, that if I could pass along to anyone, if you're going to do a practice peak, like, do a practice peak. Don't say like, okay, I'm going to give this a go of depleting. Like I still learned how my body handles depletion, and it's not great. But what I didn't really learn as much as I would have liked to is how my body responds to the refueling afterwards. So that's my peak week bit. I finished eating some cheese and sausage, like cheese and salami. So it was salami. Yeah, cheese and salami a little while ago. And it was great. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't carved up yet. So right now, my visual appearance is what I hope will be the smallest that I look and feel in a long time. I had written on here that I wanted to talk about foods that I leaned on over prep, because I do think that is something that is important to talk about when you're doing a prep retrospect. I didn't write down what the foods were, so we're gonna go off of memory, which means I'm probably gonna forget something. No doubt I'm gonna forget something. I talked about yasso bars. Yasso bars in the evening, or some sort of ice cream treat. My general nutrition strategy has and always will be, because of the way that my mild general anxiety works, is I do not front load my calories. I try very hard to control as much as I can in the early part of the day. Pre-workout snacks, breakfast, post breakfast, like mid-morning snacks, lunch, all that stuff, so that at dinner time, when I'm with my wife and when I'm in kind of a more relaxed state and trying to kind of wind down for the evening, and before bed, when I know that sleep is going to be so important, that my strategy was to allow myself more space in that evening time to have more food. I know not everyone can do that, for whatever reason, be that like, kids, job, work schedules. If you're just someone that really struggles to eat a lot in the evenings, that can be challenging. I do think having that, I'm getting off track again. I can't believe I'm doing this. That having that space was super valuable for me. So that helped my mental health a lot, being able to still eat like a pretty big dinner, like a 900 to 1,000 calorie dinner sometimes, when you take in rice and all the other stuff. Foods that I leaned on. Curry was fantastic for me throughout my prep. Both the like pre-prepared bagged curries, like tikka masala, that were like pretty controlled in terms of fats, and I was able to have naan and rice with those pretty regularly. I ate a lot of rice in general, but controlling that rice intake to where I could have half a cup or a third of a cup uncooked was super helpful. Focusing on spicy foods in general, or high capsaicin foods with lots of peppers, bell peppers, chili oils, chili flakes, especially near the end when I was starting to get a little more diet fatigued, and those meals became super important to just like feeling refreshed, feeling recovered, feeling like I was getting food. There's a bit of research out there about how capsaicin, which is one of the active enzymes in peppers, and feel free to drop in the comments if I'm talking about this incorrectly. Capsaicin is one of those enzymes that can help both suppress hunger and slow eating, because spicy food, if food's spicy, if food hot, you're not going to eat food really fast. So mindful eating was facilitated by having spicier food, and my spice tolerance just went way up over the last 20 weeks. Like I was feeding stuff to Lauren, and she was just like, dude, I can't eat this, it's too hot. So I had to start again adding in more things like chili oils and whatnot. Other foods I leaned on for sure, cereal with whey protein in the milk. If you're not already doing protein cereal, my breakfast was regularly right around 400 calories, because I would take 6 ounces of milk, 1 scoop of vanilla whey protein powder. I didn't use like isolate or any of the really expensive stuff, just a standard whey supplement, with a scoop of PB Fit, the powdered peanut butter. We'll go back to PB Fit. A scoop of PB Fit, And then just like a measured cup of Honey Nut Cheerios with this like smorgasbord of fresh berries. And so that did a lot for me. One, a little bit of fiber from the berries, carbs, because normally that would come either after a walk in the treadmill in the morning of like 30 to 40 minutes, or it would come after my early morning workouts where I'd go in at like 5:30 and then I would come back and have breakfast with Lauren. Getting that carb recovery, that it was like a controlled carb recovery that came from a number of sources. Again, like the macros on it ended up being, I want to say around 40 grams of protein with the whey, the milk, and the peanut butter powder, like 6 to 7 grams of fat, and then, you know, however many grams of carbs, but usually enough that when I finished up breakfast, like I felt pretty happy, right? I could throw a banana in my cereal if I really needed that additional carb load. But on most days, like that would help me get through the morning and feel energized, even though I had started the day depleted in some senses. So protein cereal is another one. PB Fit is another one. I was not a believer in powdered peanut butter. I was like weirdly dogmatic about just eating regular peanut butter and resistant to PB Fit. But I tell you what, I'm never going back. It is exactly the same as far as texture goes, as far as, I mean, you know, like there are some differences, obviously, like, you know, the oiliness, the fattiness is definitely a little bit different with peanut butter. And if you're bulking and you need more volume, like, yeah, just use regular peanut butter. But as far as cut goes and maintenance goes, like typically I'm gonna keep that on hand for the rest of my days, because it was so easy to just add a scoop into a protein shake, add a scoop into, like, you know, milk or whatever, and it just made it tasty. It just made it taste better. I love peanut butter. Always love peanut butter. Peanut butter is damn good. I should talk about vegetables. I haven't talked about vegetables this entire time. So I progressively ate. I already ate a decent amount of veggies. I progressively ate more vegetables as this prep went on, partially because of fiber, but also because of Phil from what's the show? It's the why don't he love me, man? That's like one of the saddest lines from this show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Yeah, Phil. Okay, Phil's in front. Yeah, I think so. Phil is eating filling foods, large volume filling foods was really important. And so since I already liked vegetables, it helped, but I ate a lot of mushrooms, peppers, onions. Mushrooms, peppers, and onions were always staples. A lot of spinach, kale. What's the big one? Oh, I just had it. Broccoli. There we go. Here's the thing. I did not steam vegetables once during this prep. I know that some folks are going to have to keep their fats down, but it's not worth it. Look at me. It's not worth it to make yourself exist on steamed vegetables. Now, if you love steamed vegetables and you're down for them, great. But if I could give you one recipe, that means I've talked for too long. If I could give you one actual recipe, it is a half a tablespoon of olive oil with sliced broccoli, sliced peppers, sliced onions, sliced mushrooms, right? Heat up your olive oil in a pan, drop those make sure it's nice and hot, drop all those veggies in, add garlic powder, chili powder, salt, and pepper, right? If you keep those 4 things on hand, all of your vegetables are going to taste so much better. Yes, there are calories in olive oil. Yes, there are fats in olive oil. Those calories, those fats are going to help keep your brain good, brain work good. They're going to help with your hormones. But really, like, I eat so many sauteed veggies. And the fact that I went from eating probably 12 grams of fiber per day on before this diet, and now at the end of it, I'm regularly eating 40 grams of fiber per day and feeling, honestly, up until this depletion, not that hungry. having more fiber has helped a ton. I'm gonna move off of this food thing because I still got to talk about training and I got to talk about feelings. We're gonna talk about feelings. No, I'm gonna take a break. Yeah, we're good. Thomas English muffins. They have a light multigrain English muffin that is 100 calories, 9 grams of fiber, and that plus PB Fit plus a little bit of jam was a perfect snack that helped me feel full for like hours. So I know I'm forgetting foods here. You know, I know I didn't include, like, I stayed on chicken thighs instead of chicken breasts the entire time, and I do not regret that decision at all because I enjoyed my food every time I ate it. Chicken sausages, and still like whey protein. You know, I did take supplements. I took creatine continuously throughout the prep. I did C4 pre-workout because I'm still in high school, and I did. I'm not actually still in high school. I feel like I need to say that for some reason. And I used a casein and a whey supplement just throughout to supplement a little bit of protein intake. But those are the 4 supplements. The 4 supplements that I used. If you got questions about food, hit me up on the other platforms and I will happily talk through some of my other strategies that I'm apparently not remembering right now. So, feelings. No, we're going to talk about training. Starting off, weeks 20 down through weeks 20 through 16. I was not working with a trainer. I was not getting anyone else to look at my routines. I was running, I was lifting. I went from lifting 3 times per week, primarily focusing on compounds with a little bit of accessory work, to and running for like 3 to 4 times per week, to running 3 to 4 times per week and lifting 5 times per week. Now, if you are familiar with hybrid athletics, or if you are familiar with just like general training principles, I should have known better that was going to accumulate a lot of fatigue. And after those first 4 weeks, I felt like absolute garbage. I was falling apart. So I started working with Sweet Lou. Sweet Lou offered to help me with my programming. And I am forever grateful that he decided to do that. And I'm still working on how I'm going to say thank you for that particular assist. But week 16, I think down through week 10 potentially. So 8. I'm working backwards. Week 16 down to like week or 8 weeks out. We'll just say that. I was doing heavier compounds and heavier sets. Anywhere between 6 to 10 reps with 4 to 5 sets depending on the movement. We were cutting back a little bit and really focusing on some focus areas that I had, which were shoulders. I was going through physical therapy for some subscapular stability issues that, you know, haven't totally healed up yet, but have healed up enough that things are starting to feel a little more normal. And also just like filling in this gap that I've had in my chest for a long time, as has been, you know, just, I don't know if it was a genetic thing that got worse over time or if it really was just like a muscle imbalance that got worse over time. But we slowly made a lot of progress on working on those things, along with hams and glutes, because as a runner, those were not hugely developed areas for me. If I never have to do another Romanian deadlift again, I'm gonna have to. I know I will. But I did so many of them during this prep, and as much as some weeks I really, really did not want to do it, I'm glad that I did. Evie doesn't care that I'm trying to record videos. I think my wife is also gonna be getting home soon. So yeah, around that 8-week mark, we changed up the movements just a little bit to be less tough on the joints. To reduce a little bit of that fatigue and work basically in no less than no fewer than 10 reps on most compounds. So for things like squats, you know, that was kind of rough. It was kind of difficult some days. But also there was a really nice rhythm to my leg days where I was doing them early in the morning, and it was just kind of like brain off, do the thing. I've got a package showing up. I'm gonna make a note. What is this, 35 minutes? I could just keep talking over the barking. Maybe I will. Because I thought like... You done? Thank you. Reducing the amount of stress in the joints by increasing the reps, but not up to these like wild, you know, 15, 20 plus rep ranges that I think get a little bit, that tend to get set up with some bodybuilding programs. I still felt like I was able to work on my strength and maintain my strength in those, especially in those morning leg sessions. There was this initial decrease in strength that I felt, especially in those first couple of weeks where I knew that I was underfeeding, you know, knew in the rear view that I was underfeeding. I saw my numbers drop pretty quickly, and that was concerning, but you know, I figured it was a part of the process, so I didn't worry too much about it. Once we got the nutrition dialed in, once we started to be more intentional about my effort, making sure that I wasn't going to failure every week, it became easier for me to maintain a certain set of numbers. So, you know, I think one of my pride points from this prep really is that my squat numbers didn't go down. And I know that that seems like I'm not a power lifter. I'm not, I'll use numbers. You know what? Here it is. I got it. I got it. I can't pick up the damn book. When I started, and this was 3 weeks in, you know, I was doing sets of 235 for 10 and having to, this is on back squat, 235 for 10 and having to cut back a little bit. At one point it was 255 for 6. And as I, oh wait, no, that's really old. Sorry, 245 for 6, 245 for 7. Doing things belted up just to get a little bit of extra support on my last sets. And there was a decrease, but I want to say starting at like maybe 7 weeks out, maybe 6 weeks out, I started doing like 205 for 8, 205 for 9, pushing a little bit. And it didn't feel great initially to be like, this is where I'm at. And if I'm going to actually follow my plan for reps and reserve, because that's what we were using, it didn't feel great to say, if I'm actually going to follow this plan, then that's what, this is just where I'm going to be. But as I progressed through the weeks and I did not lose more strength, that I got in the gym and I was able to consistently do those sets, that was a really great grounding point for me as someone who felt like my legs were not a strength for me in preparing for a classic physique. So I didn't even mention that. It's classic physique is my category. I could have said that at any point. Basically, the training strategy was to, as much as possible, try to reduce the stress on the joints going into those later weeks. Switching up the types of rows I was doing, adding in more machine work where possible, and just again focusing on those problem areas, those focus areas, and not trying to tackle everything at once. The biggest change that I made in my training was about 5 weeks out. We were looking at photos with the pit crew, so to speak, and I think they were having a lot of side conversations about this before they came to me with it. But they just said like, hey, look, if we're gonna do this, like, I think it's imperative that you stop running. And again, I love running. Like I'm the current plan, which like 12 weeks from now, I don't know why I looked at my watch like it was going to give me the date of the race. 12 weeks from now, I'm planning to do a marathon, and I have done, this will be my 6th marathon if I'm able to do it. I have done marathons at varying levels of time and preparation. I know I have a decent aerobic base built up. I know that I have a pretty good amount of a pretty good amount of resilience built up because I was progressively doing longer walks and longer rucks throughout the prep, just walking with backpack or weight or whatever. But you know, there is some concern about fatigue and effort, so we dropped running 5 weeks out. in order to reduce inflammation in the legs and make some things easier on my hips, on my feet, on my ankles, on my joints. And, you know, it worked. As much as I hate to admit that, you know, stopping running partway through prep was probably a really, really good thing. Did it impact my weight loss strategy? Yeah, I had to do more steps. I had to spend more time on the bike. Really tired of the bike. It's fine. But it also went a long way towards me feeling better when I was doing my strength training. And ultimately that was the thing that was important. So if anyone else is like doing the hybrid thing, natty thing, I guess hybrid natty in particular, because I can't speak to what other substances would do to this process. If you're doing the hybrid natty thing, like keep running for as long as you can, but at a certain point be ready to say like, okay, if I'm focusing on bodybuilding and if I'm focusing on that competition, that is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try to constantly work on both of these goals when I'm in this the final stretch of what the big thing looks like, because ultimately I want to be flexing on stage. I don't want to be not able to, you know, flex a glute because I have some sort of hamstring strain or some sort of Achilles strain. So that's a little bit on training. I've gone on 40 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to close up by just talking about feelings and mental health, because this I think is, at least for me and the way that I approach training, the reasons that I do training, and just managing like being a husband and being a content creator throughout all of this. You know, I'll start by saying that I never would have done this if it weren't for the fact that when I told people I was considering it, they said, "That's amazing. How can I support you?" Or some other permutation of that. And you know, if nothing else, if I learn nothing else, and I've learned so many things, but if I got nothing else out of this, it is that I have a surprising number of people in my life who are going to say, "You can do that." I knew that when I went out for my first marathon and I said I'm considering doing it. I got so much support, and that translated into me wanting to offer that support for other people. And it's like, when I say support, I don't mean like the instrumental support of, yeah, we're gonna, like, I'm gonna run with you, or I'm gonna, you know, like buy you shoe, you know, all of the very like tangible things that someone could potentially offer in terms of support. It's not that. It is every little conversation that you have with someone where they say that they're interested in something, or they say that they want to do something, or they say that they are considering a change. If you help that person believe that they're capable of that, you are doing so much more for them than you realize. I'm gonna start crying. I'm gonna start it. Because really, like, I had a lot of doubts about this from the start. I had a lot of doubts partway through. I am someone who can be very disciplined, but someone who also gets in his own head about a lot of different things and gets anxious about changes in routines. And you know, like there was a piece with Twitch where numbers were fluctuating because they always do at that time of year, whatever that's for. But I just like, I had all of these moments where I thought, you know, how worth it is this? And am I taking this too seriously? And I got all these reminders from people in the community, from you know, people on Discord, people on Instagram. I should have said my wife first, but my wife, right? My family, you know, the weirdest experience I think I had throughout was when I would say like, oh yeah, I'm doing this bodybuilding thing for the first time. And I would kind of expect, just naturally, you know, like I would sort of expect someone to be like, okay, cool. Like, cause you know, you're spray tanning, getting naked, not like actually naked, but like almost naked on stage in front of a bunch of people. And virtually every time it was just like, what do I need to do to be there, or how can I see, or like what, like tell me all about it. And when you're in prep and the only thing you can think about is your show, or the only thing you can think about is food or your diet or your next workout, I think having someone just be interested and help you feel like it's an interesting thing, when it felt many times like I was not a good person to spend time with because all I could think about was this prep stuff. Having that person, being that person for someone else is so huge. So I'm really like, I'm maybe overdriving this point, but I want to say thank you. And I want to encourage you, if you are in that space for someone and you can be that person for someone, like, please do it. Peak week and practice peak weeks really threw me for a loop. And I think being in an extended period of dieting in general shortened my fuse in a way that I'm thankful that I was told that would happen. But refeeds helped. Taking 1 to 2 days to be at maintenance and increase my carbs a little bit, and to maybe eat 1 or 2 things that were kind of not full cheat meals, but it's like I didn't eat burgers like at any time during my prep except for on my refeeds, where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have a burger today. I'm gonna track that burger as well as I can, and I'm gonna make sure that it's part of my plan overall. But having those days where I gave myself the mental break around food, I think really helped me push through that 20 weeks. So, yeah, I feel like there's so many things that I could continue talking about. And maybe, you know, depending on how everything goes, I might do a follow-up video where I actually, you know, edit in some footage of posing and photos and all that stuff. If y'all are following on Instagram, you're going to see photos. I still don't know what I'm going to look like as a spray tanned human being. Probably not that different, but maybe very different. So, damn. I didn't have a long list. I put this all on the same. I've been doing like net carb tracking throughout the week. And I get this closer, it's just not going to focus, but because I wanted to be able to still eat vegetables but actually track what my carb intake was. Starting tomorrow morning, I get to throw down on these. I get to have so many carbs, so many sweet potatoes, so much rice, but you know, to a controlled extent. Obviously, that's it for now. That's it. This has been just an overview of what my life has been like in the last 20 weeks as a natty first-time bodybuilding competitor. And I'm going to see in 2 days what happens as a result. So I'm going to go. I need to do some meal prepping, some posing, and I'm going to go hug my wife, because I think she's home. Thanks.